Welcome back to The Explainer. So glad you're here. We're diving right into this amazing historical and theological story from the Hearken Family Study Guide, looking at Kings chapter 16 through 25. You know, what's really cool about this source text is how it takes a 2,700-year-old history lesson and makes it feel incredibly immediate. It's literally a masterclass in action, faith, and strategy when facing down an absolute nightmare of a siege.
Seriously, put yourself in this exact position for a second. What do you do when the absolute most powerful, ruthless military machine in the known world is, well, literally right outside your front door? That's the highest-stakes drama our source material drops us right into. We're talking about a terrified king staring down an absolutely unstoppable force.
Section 1. A threat at the gates.
Okay, to grasp the sheer scale of this threat, let's set the scene. We're going back roughly 2,700 years. The kingdom of God's people, it had split into two, Israel up north, Judah in the south, and Assyria, basically the reigning superpower of the era, was on the march. Now, this wasn't just some minor border skirmish, guys. This was a total, relentless conquest. The northern kingdom, already completely wiped out by the Assyrian Empire, and now their king, Sennacherib, had his eyes on the ultimate prize, Jerusalem. It was quite literally the last city standing. This holy city sat on Mount Zion, and right at the very peak was the temple of God. And that temple is exactly what Sennacherib was coming for. 46. That's how many cities in Judah had already fallen to Sennacherib's army before they even reached Jerusalem. 46. The study guide really emphasizes this number to build up the tension of what was actually happening on the ground. This march was brutal, it was incredibly efficient, and now it was right at Jerusalem's doorstep. And this is where the psychological warfare kicks in. Sennacherib doesn't just attack right away. Instead, he sends messengers to stand right outside the city walls and literally shout ultimatums so every single person inside can hear them. Just imagine the sheer terror of hearing this echo over the stone walls. Don't trust your God to save you. We have destroyed every nation whose God promised to protect them. Your God won't be any different. Can you even imagine the absolute panic, the fear gripping the people, not to mention their leader, King Hezekiah?
Section 2. Miracle on Mount Zion, a king's choice.
So inside the walls, King Hezekiah is terrified. He knows, practically speaking, his army stands zero chance. But instead of just giving up or surrendering, he does something highly specific and, honestly, pretty unconventional. He takes the actual physical threatening letter from the Assyrians, walks straight up the mountain and right into the temple, God's house, and literally spreads the letter out before the Lord. He doesn't sugarcoat it, his prayer is desperate, but it's full of faith. God, you made the heavens and the earth. You see what this empire has done. Please save us. He took the physical proof of his terror right to the source of his hope.
And what happens next is just, wow. It's the dramatic climax of this whole historical account. According to the text, that very night, the angel of the Lord went out into the Assyrian camp. By the time morning broke, 185,000 Assyrian soldiers were gone. Think about that number, 185,000. Sennacherib, the absolute mightiest king in the world, simply packed up whatever he had left and went home, never to return. Jerusalem was saved, and it wasn't by some brilliant military maneuver. It was by a prayer.
Section 3. Claiming the Covenant, the Parent Layer. This is where the study guide pivots from this incredible historical miracle to a much deeper theological lesson. Like, why was the temple his very first instinct when a massive army was at his gates? Well, let's look at what Hezekiah didn't do. He didn't just sit around in passive worry, and he didn't run to a war council to brainstorm with his generals. Instead, he went straight to the temple. The source text describes this not as some passive retreat, but as an active, deliberate claim on a covenant. He was essentially saying, look, you promised to be here, I am here, and I am holding you to what you promised.
The source actually reinforces this point with a really powerful insight from LDS prophet Ezra Taft Benson. He said, when we put God first, all other things fall into their proper place or drop out of our lives. The study guide calls this the parent layer. Basically, it's this idea that resilient families, much like Hezekiah, survive those incredibly hard times not because they have zero problems, but because they know exactly where to turn when the heavy, threatening letters of life arrive. I mean, he put God first, and 185,000 problems quite literally dropped out of his life.
So an absolutely crucial point here is understanding the symbol of the mountain itself. In Israel's covenant understanding, as the text defines it, the holy mountain wasn't just, geography. It was the place where heaven touches earth. It was the dedicated, explicit location where God had actually promised to meet and hear his people. Going to the mountain meant going to meet God face to face.
Section 4. The Christ Connection. Heaven touches earth.
Now, this ancient geographical concept of the Holy Mountain, it actually expands throughout the entire scriptural narrative. If you look at it, there's a really compelling pattern in biblical history here. Pivotal, totally transformative events consistently occur on mountains. Think about it. Abraham offering his son, Moses receiving the law, and then jumping forward, Jesus preaching his greatest sermon, the Transfiguration, and of course his agonizing prayer on the Mount of Olives. The mountain is almost always the setting for these profound covenants where heaven actively interacts with earth.
Which leads right to this profound assertion from the source material. Jesus is the fulfillment of the mountain. The whole concept shifts from a physical location to a person. He becomes the ultimate place where heaven touches earth. The guide explains that he invites people to come to him in the exact same way Hezekiah came to the temple, just bringing the terrifying letters of life honestly and trusting for sure that they will be heard.
Section 5. Your Family's Letter, Modern Application.
Okay, let's bring this right back to you today. The study guide actually transforms this ancient Assyrian artifact, this super threatening letter, into a really brilliant metaphor for whatever heavy, overwhelming, or just plain scary things modern families are dealing with right now. To make this concrete, the source outlines a highly actionable family activity to kind of replicate Hezekiah's ancient response in a modern home. Step 1. Have everyone write down something scary, hard, or just too big that they're carrying. Step 2. Put the papers together, pray out loud, and give those things to God, literally spreading them out just like Hezekiah did. And Step 3. Keep the papers and look back in a month to actually notice what God did. It's a structured, tangible way to actively claim those promises.
Which leaves us with this final, thought-provoking question drawn straight from the guide's discussion prompts. When you are totally overwhelmed by something that's just way too big to handle, where do you go? Seriously, what is your mountain? It's a great question that challenges us to look at our own lives, take our biggest fears, and figure out exactly where to spread them out. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and definitely keep exploring these incredible ancient texts.